What's up, everybody? It's Mike. We're back here on the Pitch Please podcast. And today I've got Imam, and we're going to be talking about SellStatic. Imam, why don't you tell us what we're going to be talking about today?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. So my name's Imam. I'm currently co-founder and CEO at SellStatic. So today we're going to be talking about SellStatic, which is an AI platform for real estate. So we basically help real estate agents automate their work, treating it kind of like a best friend for realtors, help them with a bunch of tedious tasks that help them scale and make more revenue.
That feels super useful, especially with the spring market coming up. And I think houses
Yeah.
starting to pop back on sale. There was a little bit of a slowdown there. So I'm curious to understand how this works, where it fits in. But before that, it's always important to understand a little bit more about you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, maybe your work and school history and what inspired you to start SellStatic? I know I'm going to mess this name up, by the way, at least 3 times today. But what inspired you to start SellStatic?
There you go. There's a tongue twister for you. I always love this question because it's like, how far back do I go, right? But I guess a cool point to start was, I've always been interested in entrepreneurship. So a lot of my background's been in sales, working at different startups, like big scale startups, small scales. I started one with a mentor, who's been on Forbes before, and it was cool to learn all the ins and outs of beginning stages. But I heard that one of my mentors say this saying, rock stars never stay in one place. So I'll bounce around a lot. For 6 to 8 months, I'd work somewhere. I'd kind of be like, I'm not learning as much anymore. Let's jump to the next. So my journey started off with, it was funny. Like I'll go all the way back to high school. Like even in high school, I remember I used to be the kid that used to carry around the toolkit. And I used to go sit in the cafeteria and fix phone screens, and we'd write up napkin contracts, and had an hour break, and I'd skip class to fix a phone. I got in trouble for it once, but it was fun. I started with that, and then I remember when fidget spinners were a big thing. We used to go around and sell those. So I guess it's funny. The hustle's always kind of been there, where it's like
So
you
that
have
always
fun
like
doing.
that was like your high school, Imam. Like you were always like looking for like some opportunities to like help people create value, make some money, even in a high school age. Fidget
Yeah, it
spinners,
was it was
phone
like
fixing.
it all started. Usually something traumatic happens to me. Like I shattered the crap out of my phone like a bunch of times. I was getting mad, and then they charge you like what for an iPhone of what like 7 or 8 at the time. It was like like half the price of the phone to fix your screen, and I was like, man, I can probably get Boots ones, and kids just need something working instantly, so they were willing to pay me cash the next day and be like, Mom, I need my phone fixed. But yeah, that kind of led to the next steps, which was like, hey, then I started competing at pitch competitions in university when I was in high school. And that's what kind of came I started having fun. I remember I started like a small business then. It was a startup, but I was a kid. I didn't really have much experience. But it's called Smartfall. We created a startup for drones to create a safety system for drones. But again, it was more just use it to pitch. Went to a bunch of competitions. Learned a lot from it though. We won a bunch of university pitching competitions. I think it was just the idea of a kid coming and pitching was pretty cool to them.
What was
Which led
like
me kind
your
of.
just I want to pause you on that one. What was like because you said there's a lot of learnings, but it was kind of like a thing you're doing in school. Like what was the biggest takeaway from doing that you think you're still using today?
I think my talking ability got 10 times better.
Okay.
Cause it's funny, like when we went to go pitch, I think the only reason we won was that confidence portion of, all right, you have an idea that you're again once a little bit more passionate about, and now you're getting the opportunity to go use it somewhere and apply it and talk about it. So it's that thing, what, even in sales, the first thing they teach you in sales is know your product inside out or you won't be able to sell it. So for me it was for the first time, this was my high school period where I was really shy to go pitch and talk in front of people and give presentations. But this is the portion where I was like, all right, it was funny. The first time I stood up, my brain sat back down. I didn't know what to say. But it was a funny saying. But then that's, I think, a big learning lesson in those early stages. But it was also that motivation to hey, I kind of like this stuff. It was fun. Then yeah, university started, and obviously COVID happened, so online was everyone kind of took a tank. But it was still reading, learning. I'm a big person who loves learning about self development stuff. So I'm a big reader. Well, most of the books you'll talk about at that time I was again really sucked at communication, really sucked at the whole friend making thing. And I remember one of my favorite books at the time was How to Win Friends and Influence People. It was really hard for me to kind of make friends at the time, or I read the title and it was kind of embarrassing. I'd read it, but I'd cover the title when I'd be in public. I remember I taped the background because I didn't want people to
Man,
know
I've read that
what.
book too, but I agree. Like they got to get a better title because if it's like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
Like you
because
can't
you're
make
sitting in
friends?
public, he's going, what a loser. So I remember I taped the title. But man, if I tell you today, one of the most impactful books that I read, and that kind of started the journey. So yeah, I'm kind of going back into more forward stuff. I worked a bunch of retail jobs. I worked at the bank for a little bit. My first internship was at a startup company actually, where I learned what sales truly was. I used to go door to door for a SaaS platform for restaurants, and it was in my first summer as an intern. And man, it was hard. It was hard. I remember like in 30-degree weather, we'd be knocking on doors one by one at restaurant doors. And our job was to sell a software that was like not fully ready yet, but it was kind of that ideation MVP stage. But we'd get kicked out of the door so fast. But you learn rejection there. You learn you learn sales. That was a really really raw like learning lesson in the summer, which led me to become a sales manager my past summer at a big company in Toronto. Kind of leading to me where I am now. But yeah,
Do,
it's a little
do you
bit
think
of a
that
journey.
like do you think that experience selling, and I think it's so perfect how you put it, because the best startups actually succeed by getting out there and selling things and getting people on board before it's perfect and done. And some people overthink that and think it has to be perfect and done before you start selling it. You are on like the front line of that, which is I have to sell this dream of where we're going. You said you got kicked out a lot, but I'm sure you got a lot of yeses too. What was like maybe the most memorable part of that journey, or something that you're like, hey, you know what? I remember this interaction um, from trying to like position this thing that's it's good, it works, but it's not yet done, and you're kind of getting people to go on the startup journey with you, but as a customer.
100%. So it's funny, even now we're corporated as like everyone's like Imam's like a sales guy. Imam's biased towards the sales guys. I'm like a little bit, I am, but um, I'll tell you something funny. I learned from one of my mentors. It was again. I was really upset at the time because I was like, I'm learning sales, but it was hard. It was like getting rejection after again, but then obviously closing the sale, you get a little excited. But it was when I was at the bank. I'll give you an example. I was a teller at the bank for a bit, and I thought I was a salesman. I used to sit at the front, but here's the funny part. It's like the Jordan Belfort's three yeses, three tens, and it was like at TD Bank. Do you trust TD Bank? Of course you do. It's a bank. Do you trust the person there? Again, they put on a nice smile. You probably trust them, and do you trust what they're selling? Like if TD gave you a credit card or a $10,000 loan, you'll trust them. It's TD. So all three tens, like all I had to really do was put a smile on my face, and I was their top seller, and I got awards and all this stuff. But it was only because like I used to have a big smile, and always at the front handing out stuff. But then I get kicked into a startup where no one knows who the hell you are, no one knows who the hell your company name is, and no one cares who you are, and or your product is. So now it was like these three things where I had to completely start from scratch and go pitch not only myself, my company, and my product. All three things which were new. So it came time where I was like, wow, this is what sales is. This is where like this is what raw sales looks like. And I kind of got to take that experience to like the journey where I'm like, now when we're at the same stage now where it's like, validating, for example, what is it? It's selling a dream. And one of my funny memorable experiences, even in our early stage, was I remember like I was so used to selling a dream. It kind of becomes a habit of like a salesman. And I remember we really, because when our business first came out, and I really really sold this one girl. She was so happy. She's like, I'm in. Here's my money. Take it. And like she was really excited. Then she got like, and this is the early stage. And she got the product, and she was pissed, man, because it was like she didn't get the full thing like we promised to where our company would be. But again, learning lesson, right? Like we obviously lost that customer, but it was a big learning lesson where it was like you promise something, but now you got to make sure you deliver. So that's, I feel like, one of the lessons that followed along in terms of sales, which is you can like all my sales guys, like I know I can give you a script, I can give you ways to coach, I can give you the tactics on how, like, to cold call, things to outreach. Like there's a book. It's funny. All my guys that get onboarded, I force them to read one book, which is 100 Million Leads, by Alex Hormozy, and it's an amazing book that'll teach you the fundamentals of kind of like a playbook on sales and marketing. But it's a huge learning lesson for, I believe, for everybody, because those small things really really add up, especially when it comes to a company now where your early stages matter, and it's all about customer relationships building and those people that are going to help you with your MVP portion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's such a valuable point, and I've learned that from so many startup founders that have had real success, which is in sales. There's this element of like selling the dream, but there's this authenticity and humbleness of also explaining where you're at and asking the customers to come on the journey with you. That is more powerful than people think. Like sometimes I think people are a little bit worried when they're starting a business, that when positioning where they are at and what they're trying to do, that if it's not perfect and flawless, this beautiful final stage of where they want to be, which is probably realistically 2 to 3 years out. If they're not there, that customers will reject them. But
100%.
the finding is actually the opposite, which is if you sell them on the vision of what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go, and that solves a real problem for them, as long as you are priced right, people will come on that journey with you because they
100%.
actually want to help iterate on that and have their voice heard, and they want to solve that problem. The problem becomes if you actually haven't found a real problem to solve.
Yeah, exactly.
And so then you're in a different scenario. But people
It's
will
like
go on that
we
journey with
learned
you.
that like the first thing literally just now, which was don't like it was my lesson. Like a mentor sat down with me and he's like, Mom, here's your freaking problem. He pulled up the whole tech curve and like the earlier your laggards, your innovators. So he pulled up the full tech curve and he was like, Mom, the thing is right now when you sell, you're just selling to like whoever, like, you throw your door out and you sell to whoever wants. But it's not like you can't do that because the thing is like he said something really really great to me, which was people right now feel like they're buying something broken because of the way you're, like it's that feeling you're giving, like we're not ready yet, but we will be. We're not ready yet, like where we will be. But that entire thing had to change, and where we had to sit down and introduce like our SellStatic Innovators program, which was, hey, like be one of our first early customers and help us build something amazing. Price for you will never change, and here are the next steps. We want your feedback with us. Like you'll have a stake in it. Like that's that feeling of inclusiveness is something we had to learn really really early. And I feel like it kind of adds on to what you're saying in terms of, it matters. Those early stages like of building that vision, but not promise over promising. That's one of those main things. I was like, but again, we that's why my team gets mad at me because like Imam favors the sales team, but this is why, because I know it gets really really hard in that specific department, especially for like everyone in our company is below 25 years old. So because we want to kind of show everybody that, hey, like age doesn't matter. We want to make a difference. But it was that portion of like, we're also learners, so a lot of our time goes into learning together. And that was one of those moments where it's like, me alongside my sales guys, we're learning like, we can't do that.
So speaking of like learners and everyone in your company being under 25 years old, I think before we started recording today, we were talking a little bit about the fact that you're still in school. How is balancing that, or maybe it's beneficial because you're able to find this young, energetic sales force and teammates for it. But what are the pros and the cons of trying to start a startup while still in school?
So I'll start with cons. Like I'll start with cons first. Cons is that, again, perfect example right now. Starting I think tomorrow, exam season starting. So company's gonna be ghost town, which means the C-suite guys we gotta step up and like cover for everybody. Well, we also have exams. My CTO just graduated, so it's just me. But we got to do the covering up now because I can't force someone. If they screw up in school, that's my fault. But but one thing is exactly exam season, managing schedules, meetings, all that stuff gets very hectic in the school year, and in-person meetings get really really hard because people can't come out. Like we have people at different universities, and it's managing that student life because like. I know on a Friday night I can't host you for like a meeting because like half these guys want to go clubbing and I'm like I can't hold them back from like wanting to go have fun. But I feel like honestly one of the only cons was that like being young. Another portion is that, again, learning is great, but sometimes a lot of kids come on for that free boat thing. So for example, we were at a point where we had a team of 25 or 26 people. And again, a lot of them were students that just wanted internships and wanted to learn. What ended up happening is that when they come on, I had to build that no free ride zone really quickly because then everyone's like, CC at school, Mom, like, we're looking for an internship. What's up? And like, it became one of those like, oh, like, let's go get this guy an internship. But then when they come on, they wouldn't do work. So I had to learn that balance of, all right, like, even if you were coming and working for free and you're an intern to help me out, which in my head sounded great, because, free value, free help. But it's like I'd have a half charged battery that would sometimes work and sometimes wouldn't. And you don't want those on board because if anything, they start building like a negative culture in the company of like, not showing up to meetings, not coming to like on stuff on time, and they're like, oh sorry, we have school, and like, but it's that saying like one poisonous drop can impact a team very 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 bad. So for us now, it was like I kind of get into the pros now, which was aside from these a couple of cons, the pros I truly believe outweigh the cons, and here's why. When you're a student startup, if you are a student listening to this, trust me, take my advice on this, start a business. You get money thrown at you like, like you're I don't know, like you're some millionaire walking down the road. Like it's it's like I came in and had an idea and I went to my school incubator and like, they knew me from a while because obviously I've been part of the best, it was called the best program. I've been part of that for so long. But just as like, an attendee, I'd pitch in their competitions and then Maida, who was her name, the head of best, she comes up to me and says, Iman, what the hell aren't you starting something? And I was like, you know what? Great idea. I have a notebook in front of me. Let's sit down. So I went to them with SellStatic's idea. But then I finished my meeting. I not only get office space, again, for no cost, at school, so I don't have to worry about being where, like, finding a spot to sit and take meetings. I also get part access to all these like programs, events, all this stuff that I don't have to pay for. Because again, I know they understand being a student, you can't afford a collision ticket for $1,000. It's hard. And then on top of that, we got granted what, like $13,000 to pay for our interns to come work for us, which was insane. So now you have so many resources that are available to you when you're a student. And then you also have so many people that are sharp and want to learn. And it kind of adds on to that portion where, like, you find, again, I brought up a con, which was hard part was recruiting. But then the pro is that there are genuinely people there that want to make a difference, that are want, like, the guys that are running club. I used to run a club at school. It was the largest nonprofit organization at York University called the Entrepreneurial Development Association. A lot of my leadership skills came from that organization. But I also now knew where to hunt when I wanted to find people like me, in younger years that are looking for, like, hey, like, instead of working for a club for free, or like, I'm promising you're not going to get no commission. And I'll tell you a funny story on that in a second, but I can grab those guys and be like, hey, like, I'll give you commission here. Here's a way, if we sell together, I'll also be a mentor and teach you sales. And that's where you'll hook them, like, right away. The funny story kind of is that, then I'll kind of give back to you was, I remember I was president for this organization, again, treating it like my business right now, where, I'm giving in like 60-hour weeks to this organization. And at the time when I look back at it, I was kind of silly, but again, I learned a lot. But I'm giving 60 hours a week to this nonprofit. Like, I'm sitting there all day, I'm working, I'm taking meetings on the ground. Everyone's like, Imam, wow, you rep EDA, what's the club name? You rep it like, no tomorrow. And I remember I just lived, breathed, died EDA. And what ended up happening was I remember I closed EDA's to date biggest check in York University's history for a club, which was a $5,000 check from Deloitte. I know it sounds like a little bit of money, but for clubs, it's huge. Like, usually you get like a $500 sponsorship, and everyone starts like, celebrating like crazy. You got a sponsorship, to host an event. So we secure a $5,000 check, and I remember I feeling good. I go to the guy, I pick up the check at Deloitte. I was like, oh, it was third year, and I go and I pick up the check, and I feel all good. Blasting music, you feel good. But then I remember the realization. I was staring at the check, and I was all happy. Then I remember I had to walk into BMO and deposit it, but the money didn't go to my account. The money went to the school's account. Not even commission, nothing. Like, I did not get $1 of it. So that's where it was like, and it was great that, like, we did something good. But I guess the question you have to ask yourself is that, how much good is to the point where you want to also use your skills on you, and you want to be able to use that on something that will last longer than just school. I can't take EDA into university, like, when I graduate. It's a school club. But this is something that I can start building on, and I did, and that's where I kind of took all those skills and all those resources. Again, now you have a partnership with one of the biggest clubs, and use it to kind of an advantage to start going from there and building off, if that makes sense. But that's kind of where that portion. I know it was a long tailored answer about being a student, but all these things get thrown. I feel like even you just listening now, like clubs, events, students, like, hustlers, being at school, like, mentors. People are way more willing to help students as mentoring, and then like, when you're a graduate. So
Yeah.
that kind of wraps up like a little bit about the student experience.
Well, I think like the groups and clubs are great ways to learn experiences. I think the interesting thing you called out there is you found out very quickly, and not everyone gets to clarity on that. You at your core are a seller. You're motivated by the financial gain, and there is elements of people that aren't. But I think you found that core element really early. But I do like what you talked about, which is, especially if you're in school, there's really no better time to start. And I've found this from a couple different layers. There's definitely people that I've talked to on this podcast, talked to like 50, 60 plus people that have started businesses at multiple stages. Some have left very great paying jobs at large organizations. Some have done this as part of an international move, and some have done this as part of a tail end of their career, while others have done it just after university or just in school. And I think the thing that I've found, even with myself, I started a business while in university as well. During that time, there's a lot of resources and help to get you going. You have a lot of energy, and you have a lot less downside risk, because the reality is startups is a risky path.
100%.
The majority are going to fail, but your downside when you're young is a lot lower. Like you don't have to worry potentially about supporting a family.
There you go.
Maybe your payments are a lot less, and you're used to living off a lot less money, and so you naturally think a little bit more nimbly and a little bit more
100%. You're naturally in
creatively.
that state of saving, that state of being a student, that
Yeah.
state of like, I don't gotta worry if like, everything. My friends always ask me, Mom, aren't you scared, man? I'm like, no, I'm not, because like, we're blessed. Like, I'll talk about that after, but a big motivation of mine was my parents, which were like, the international parents that kind of like came over here as immigrants and worked really hard. And kind of tailored to that when we start talking about SellStatic a little more was
Yeah.
they were real estate agents, and mom was a housewife. But you see, like, but when dad first came here, it was like 3 jobs at a time. The basic like inner immigrant story you'll hear. But then started real estate, not like like 10 a decade back or a little more than a decade, almost, wow, 15 years. I'm thinking about it now. But yeah, like started real estate, and like you see him working like 12-hour days, sometimes at night. Like why isn't dad home for dinner? It's like, oh, he's working, and that motivation was like you see them working so hard, and they now have provided us kind of a launch pad in the sense where I'm stable, I'm home. Like I know that if all goes bad, I'm in university. Like I have my parents to support me through that stage, but also kind of to use that as motivation. It's at an early stage to kind of push you and keep you going. But I feel like that it's that no risk portion is, I should have definitely added that as well. Because a lot of people ask me though, Mom, like, aren't you scared? I remember I gave a panel to a bunch of Schulich kids for at Next Founders headquarters, and I remember I was sitting there, and this kid kind of raises his hand. He's like, I have a question for you, Mom. The panel was pretty big, man. There's guy like racking up a couple $1 million there. And I was the kind of the student on the panel, like as student entrepreneur. And this kid kind of raises his hand, and he's like, Imam, I have a question for you. I'm like, aren't you scared? I was like, I'm not, because it's that even if all goes down, like I'm just saying, the worst comes to worst. Like I tank everything. Like what did I miss out on? Like an internship maybe this summer. Like I missed out on like grades. Like it's one of those things where I learned so much, and I am learning to the point where I definitely think you'll agree to this, and I'll pass it back, which is up until right now, like incorporated company, building an MVP, building a team, everything I've learned up until now, I can do again. Like everything after this, I'm still learning. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm still gonna learn how to raise those big rounds. I'm still gonna go through all that process. Like I watched like my mentors like Manny and stuff do this when they were working like at big companies, and raising series rounds. When we were at the Microsoft headquarters, like seeing all those board meetings, like that stuff is of course like, it's still gonna come. But everything up until now, it's kind of like an unlock. Like you've done it before, so I'd be confident I'd be able to do it again. So even if
Yep.
all goes down and all goes to crap and I have to get a job, or like have to go get an internship or something, I know that my security is skills. Like you can take everything. Alex Ramosi says this beautifully, that you can take everything away from somebody, everything away from me. No, my clothes, my grades, my degree, everything, but you can't take away skills, and
Yeah.
that's an
And you're
investment early that you make, and it'll really really pay off.
You're definitely building skills along the way. Well, let's talk about how you're applying those skills now to sell static. Talk to us a little bit about the challenges that you're solving and who your primary audience is. I think you said it's realtors, but I want to learn a little bit more about like what you're solving for realtors and why this was a problem in the first place.
My favorite topic. um, but yeah, so it was funny. Like my last week's just been pitching, man. Like competitions, different like places, incubators, podcasts. But yeah, so I love starting off with it. I'll start off with a number. In 2023, there were 130,000 registered real estate agents in Canada. Pretty big number, right? 52% of them made zero sales. It's a number to look at. Over 50% of realtors made zero sales, meaning what? They probably had to get other jobs. Their licenses were something like, they had to pivot to something else. Even now when we call people like, hey, like I'm a car salesman as well on top of real estate. Hey, I'm also working at this, and this. Like, real estate's usually, that's one of the reasons like when the market split, it was kind of like, wow, like people are really struggling. So our job now, or my job, especially in the early stage, was to figure out how we can help. And again, watching dad do this. So the problem that there's 4 kind of main key problems that ended up coming off, which was one, high marketing costs. Real estate agents are spending so much money on things like spending thousands of dollars a month getting burned by marketing companies. And this was something that was really, really like hectic for real estate agents, because even when you pay for all these marketing companies, they don't necessarily get you the results that you want. And a big portion of that was then leading into like when they do get your results, it's inefficient lead generation. It's struggling to find like quality leads, like weak campaigns, difficulty in creating like that content that's really, really going to support you. So same thing like for example, for a student, what do we hate doing the most? Homework. Like it's one of those things like, we have to do it, assignments, like, but we have to do it. For real estate agents, their homework is marketing. Like if you don't do marketing, like I gave a kind of like, I'll add onto this for a second, but I think it's a funny story to share. My sales guys were kind of like, why do we have to run paid ads? I have the perfect solution. I gave them Remax 100 list of top realtors in Canada, and I made them call them. I said, call all these guys and come back to me and tell me what you find in common. So based on, obviously not everyone picked up, but they come back to me, they're like, Imam, we figured it out. I was like, what? I was like, what do you think makes them so successful? We figured out that the top realtors in Canada all are running paid ads. And that was, that marketing aspect where, that homework for real estate agents was marketing. So that was something that we knew that we had a huge problem that people were having, and which ultimately led what's marketing for lead generation. Last, most importantly, was time cost. The time to do marketing, the time that a lot of realtors were spending things on the wrong thing, and every salesman will tell you, if you're not working on sales, you're working on the wrong thing. So for them, as being as main sales agents and having customers in front of them, that was kind of the main problem we kind of learned how we learned we had to solve. So yeah, that's when we started building our solution. Kind of built out to build out our MVP as fast as possible. To kind of create a platform for real estate agents where like for example, like running a paid ad. I always ask a question in front of a crowd: who here is running a paid ad? And not a lot of people raise their hand. Maybe like 20% of the room. That means 80% of the room knows that the paid ads are a thing, but they know it's a very complicated process. When I had to do it, I don't know if you've run a paid ad before. When I had to do it, I'd have like 3 screens and tutorials and figure out, what the hell is this, what's this, and like, following. That's what people pay for. That's why marketing agencies get paid. We said that, hey, what if you were able to do that in a matter of 5 clicks? Because we simplified everything, and our platform will not only generate the ads for you, it'll go to market, do A/B testing for you itself. Again, none of the stuff that you have to do. You just pick and choose which one you like. Tell us what type of, if you're in pre-construction, let it run. It'll go to market. Ad will run $10-15 a day, like $10 a day, whatever budget you spend. It'll come back and tell you, hey, the ad performed or didn't perform. If it did, great. Spend $100 more dollars like a day. Outreach, it's working. If it didn't, here are the recommended changes we have. You accept, approve, go back to market. And that portion of just simplicity and also being in control was kind of the solution we built out, where they can track what they're doing, where they can know, like, it's kind of a marketing agency and an assistant in our MVP, which is like, a right hand for you basically.
So I have to ask, because I imagine there's people thinking about it right now, and maybe the answer is simplicity, but, people might be asking, what is the difference between what SellStatic offers versus like me doing this in a meta dashboard across Facebook and Instagram? And I imagine you've thought this through, but like, what is the difference, and why should people think about why they would use SellStatic versus those other platforms? Because that's where people generally, I think, do paid ads, or at least think about doing paid ads. Talk to us about that.
So it's a beautiful question. It's usually always the question that we get asked right after. I have a backup slide for it to laugh. But it's funny. The reason it's such a great question is because we're not changing that. We know that Meta, Facebook ads, and Google ads. In the real estate market, we actually learned that Facebook ads are way better to run. And video ads, for example. Because before I started SellStatic, we were just a marketing agency. That's what we started off as. Our pivot was like, I did this for a month, and I was like, well, I'll just do like ads for people. But then I kind of got the motivation to start the portion of the company. But that's why it's a great question, because again, that dashboard is the complexity. That I heard an amazing quote by Tony Robbins, where complexity kills execution. When something's complex, that portion of logging onto that web dashboard or logging onto like Facebook and like seeing like 1,000 different things was something which was confusing. That validation stage was asking realtors like, why don't you do it yourself? Why don't you sit there? Now that's one of our validating questions. Like, hey, like, I know that since ads are so important, why aren't you running these yourself? The dude sits there, he's like, man, I have no clue what the hell I'm doing. And it's like, they tell me these, like, I tried opening the page once, and I have so many people, countless, that say, like, I tried opening the dashboard, but I'm like, man, like, I don't have the time to learn this crap, and I don't know, like, what makes a good ad, what doesn't. That learning portion, that sure, you can, and like, even now, let's get past that point. Let's just say, like, sure, you use it. Now, how do you know what makes a good ad? How do you know what type of ad to design? How do you know what ad to leave? How do you know what's a good performing ad? You're getting your return on ad spent. That whole algorithmic and learning portion is what our goal is to eventually be down the line, where we're not just a marketing company or like a software company, we're a data company. Where our data now in this early stages, our AI is collecting that knowledge right now, right? That's where the MVP portion is that as we get more and more customers using the platform, we get to that portion of like, you have the tool that's able to make those decisions for you and get better and better. And then obviously add on those other tools like, real estate just talk about pricing and having to fill out offer generation or finding the exact price of a home by going in like 5 years in the MLS history. That's something that was really, really frustrating for them. Again, automation. I want, like, if I had to build a vision for you, I want this to be a realtor's right hand, like a best friend for a realtor, where they're able to go and find all these minute tasks. Like when I see dad working at 11, it's like, man, just hand it off to the bot. Like, you'll have your offer generated by the morning, or like, you'll have something generated in the next little bit. You go spend more time with family. And that's where kind of that separation of a vision that I see the company going towards, being a full flat out dashboard, specifically meeting needs for different people. But that's kind of, I hope, answers that question.
So yeah, so you're really making it the creation of the content and evolution of the content and aggregating across multiple systems so that you don't have to go into Meta, then go into LinkedIn, then go into your email. Because I think you integrate, it sounds like you integrate with all those platforms to
100%.
push the content out. But you, instead of having to go into each of them separately, you become the hub where people launch their marketing from it and create their content in it and iterate their content based on a feedback loop. So you've made it like a simplified hub, if you will, specific to an industry, which are realtors, across things that you're going to go make more intelligent over time.
100%.
That's amazing. And so where are you guys at today? It sounds like, you're in school, but your team's quite growing. It sounds like you've got great insights. Is this past MVP now? Sell us on where you're at, but tell us a
Awesome.
little bit about not just where you're at today, but what the next year ahead's going to hold.
Awesome. Good question. So right now we're at a stage where, again, I know I kind of used the MVP term early on because that's where we were. But now it's like, all right, our MVP, like people are like, oh, when's the product coming out? I'm like, man, this is the product. It's the news. The now from our MVP, we are building more and more features on. Like, for example, we have a top product timeline now. We're implementing new and new features, making what we currently have better, reducing wait times. But we're currently at a stage where we spent, again, the first month just validating 250 customers. We reached out to thousands, but we had a list of 250 people who said, when this is built out, again, this is pre MVP, when this is built out, let us know. So right now our process has been onboarding more and more customers. Again, like it's kind of getting hectic for me again with exams. But it's literally just meetings on meetings on meetings. You got to repitch those people now again, right? So we're kind of targeting that list and building our clientele up as big as we can. For that MVP portion, again, that SellStatic Innovators program, where our goal is to get our next big milestone is to get the world, like we're not close, but we're getting there. But our goal is to get 100 paying customers on board. Because again, we launched like what a month, like our first official launch was Feb 1st, but then everything went to shit. But obviously fixing everything up. But our goal is to get to that first 100 customer mark of, we're generating that enough to know what our problem is, and then we split onto our packages, and our product kind of builds on from there. I guess our next year game plan is again hitting milestone by milestone. Again, first it would be that first 100 customer mark. Then it's kind of to figure out, all right, like we're kind of moving past that point where we need either a major pivot or not. You'll notice in the title, I didn't name it realtor static, right? I didn't name it like something to do with real estate. I named it SellStatic because it can be pivoted to any industry. Everyone needs ads. Restaurants need ads. Like stores needs ads. Small businesses needs ads. So our niche was kind of like, let's focus on realtors right now. This is something we're really passionate about. But if we need in a year to pivot, or if we need something, our market isn't growing as fast as we want it to, that road plan is always there. But you always know, you never know the next like day at a startup, what might happen tomorrow. But our phase is definitely looking into that portion of potentially raising our pre-seed round. But I want to spend the first little bit bootstrapping, because again we're doing really well with that, and seeing how we can cover that portion of how well we track in the market. So that's kind of our next little game plan. Being at events, like we'll be at Collision, like a bunch of this fun stuff. But yeah, it goes kind of to that whole game point you were saying earlier, which is knowing when it's time to be a CEO and go have fun and pitch and do like stuff like this. And knowing when it's like time to be a salesman and pick up the phone and start calling, the scene from Wolf of Wall Street. Pick up the phone, call. So it's kind of been our go to market outreach and spending time doing that.
I love it. Well, talking about that, how much does, if you can share, how much does SellStatic cost, or where do you guys make your money relative to how the product works?
Awesome. So it's very very subscription based. So we're a subscription based SaaS model, which I know like ad spends obviously we do not cover. Like when someone can spend $1,000 a day and someone can spend five, we're still gonna support either. But again, it's for those initial realtors that are just starting up and need that portion of like support and like don't want to learn the whole the whole marketing tool stuff for themselves, or realtors that have been burned kind of through marketing companies. But where we stand right now is that portion of learning where can AI be integrated in terms of support. So sorry, remind me of the question again. The question was
Yeah, I think like just like how much does it
oh
cost, or
cost
like
cost.
where
Sorry
where
sorry
do you
yeah,
make
yeah.
your
Just
money?
blew my
Just
mind
so
for a
like,
second.
yeah, no worries, man, no
Yeah, yeah.
worries.
So cost is basically so right now we're running our SellStatic Innovators program, which we charge $50 a month, 150 upfront for 3 months. So basically, the realtor comes on, gives us a 3 month dedication of being that portion of coming onto our platform, helping us kind of build that platform bigger and bigger and bigger, learning through their data, asking them questions. This is kind of like that we were talking earlier before the call, which is like kind of building that vision before that vision compared to like overselling. So that's our current package, and then we're gonna jump into our two split packages with our growth and our drive, which again will be $100 a month and $200 a month for other features that are going to be kicking off in the next couple
Nice.
months.
Nice. So if people want to find out more, where should they go? And we'll put the things in the description as well. But where should people go if you're a realtor or know a realtor, which I'm sure a lot of people do? Where should they go to find out more or sign up themselves?
First of all, sellstatic.com, of course. Please reach out. All of our information's there, and then also on top of that, like you can give yourself a free trial on sellstatic.app. And then we're on social media. Follow us on Instagram. We're really active on there. TikTok, YouTube, everything. We do a lot of videos. We do a lot of support for real estate agents and even salesmen. We know again if you wanna see the journey of a startup of like again everything we kind of talked about today, but seeing it in real life. We love sharing our story on our platforms and like day to day stuff you'll see. But yeah, give us a follow at SellStatic. Pretty unique name, so you'll find us if you search us up. That tongue twister is kind of our support system. But
I love it. Well,
but yeah.
yeah, and what kind of like as you go forward, I imagine the other type of thing people are probably thinking as they're about to go hit the website is this for like independent realtors or realtor teams or large real estate brokerages, I guess? I don't know, like who would this be for as they start typing in sellstatic.com into their web browser?
Perfect question. If you are a real estate agent and you have your license, it is applicable to you because that's me asking you the same question. Do you have to run an ad? I know there's going to be early stage real estate agents that aren't there yet. Or like I remember I have a bunch of my buddies now who are getting their real estate license, and they're like, "Imam, what do I do here? Imam, I'm almost done my exam. I just finished my exam. What's my first step? What's my first step?" That's why like my website and like we're launching a blog section soon and kind of like that whole like next steps is that we want to be that supporting hand for that. Putting a hand out for those new realtors coming into the market, a really really rough market, for the first time. But it's also for those real estate agents that, again, are single solo realtors. It's for solo realtors. Again, most realtors you'll see, even if you're part of a team, even teams consist of individual realtors. That's where the packages kind of like they'll be available for, like our expand packages. If you're a realtor with a team of like 20, of course we want to reach out to you and talk to you. But that portion's gonna happen. Like the expand package will probably be best for you because it'll help you with expansions, like knowing how to split commissions, knowing how to split leads between your teams. Small tasks. Again, everyone's tasks are very very different. But our current available packages for real estate agents that are in the market right now, coming new on board, or solo realtors, we're working to kind of help out.
I love it. I love it. Well, Mom, thank you for joining us today on the Pitch Sleeves podcast. I learned a ton about not just the right time to start as a student, which is very clear. If you're a student, anyone can start a startup, but you definitely should consider it if you're a student. To also how your journey is shaped and the things you've learned about sales and bring your customers into the fold, and also a lot about the real estate industry and how to help real estate agents across all platforms. Before we wrap up, just want to make sure that if there's any closing words or thoughts that we didn't cover today, that you have a chance to get them in. So back over to you if there's anything that you think our audience should know about you or SellStatic.
Um, I think we've talked enough about me and the business, but I do want to finish off with one thing. I heard something earlier, which is something that I really really resonated with me, and I love finishing my podcast because again, if someone made it to the end of this, you're a rock star. Because I know not a lot of people listen to like podcasts about startups and businesses. But again, it's that portion of like you're already a rock star for listening to stuff like this, especially in your industry. But here would be my last thing. I heard something and it was very impactful. In life, there are entrepreneurs and there are entrepreneurs. And those entrepreneurs are those people where it's like, you're about to take the jump. You're always talking about starting a business. And it was me. I'm telling you, that was me. Always wanting to start about talking to business or running a club. Man, are you thinking you're an entrepreneur walking around? But I'm telling you, when you make that switch, it felt like a crappy feeling when I'm like, damn, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. But remember that you're when you're looking over that ledge of like, wanting to take that jump, I just want to tell you, like, I want to be the boot in your ass for you to jump. It's one of those things where you will not regret it. It might be a risk, it might be hard, but no matter like what stage you're in right now, the amount you will learn will be more again to that investment of skill. Be that entrepreneur that's able to learn, that's able to pivot, that's able, like, even if you do entrepreneurship for a little bit and get a job after, like, it's that portion, like, you'll learn so many more skills that'll make you sharper than other people your age. So it doesn't matter how old you are. You're in high school, you're university, you're post grad, you're 50. Like, I think it's something that everyone should at least one point give it a shot. So that's would be kind of
Make
like finalized words that I would definitely say. Is that give it your best shot.
Make that jump, switch from entrepreneur to entrepreneur. I love it, Imam. Perfect way to close out on a Pitch Please podcast talking about startups and everything that makes them successful. Thanks again for coming on today. Thank you to everyone that listened in again. If you made it to the end, you just got an extra valuable insight. So make sure to tune into the next one as well. Have yourselves a great day.